Hello, and welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people during Mercury direct.
Yeah, we're actually
we
recording
all just celebrate.
right? Snaps for direct Mercury. No, we're actually recording this on the day that Mercury is finally direct, and we did so much clarity stuff in our conversation before this. It's hilarious. When you pay attention and then stuff just works after certain things happen. Like the second my Saturn return ended, I'm like, oh, I can do things. As soon as Mercury retrograde's over, it's like, oh, we have clarity. It's hilarious.
And honestly, I think every organization or anyone who works together should do this. The day that Mercury stations direct, it should just be a, what are you feeling stuck on and how can we move it forward? Brainstorm session, which you and I did. We had 2 hours set aside for other tasks today, and we spent an hour and a half just giving each other clarity and pings and strategy, and it was incredible. You will all see the results of it very soon, and it's going to feel so much more aligned. So thank you, Emily, for your part in that. Amazing.
Oh my gosh, thank you for your part in that. Amazing.
I hope you all have someone like this in your life, and if not, you have us. So speaking of people like this and having us and us having you all, to the patrons that wished me happy birthday, I'm overwhelmed and very grateful. That is awesome. And it means so much more than like the Facebook happy birthdays. These were actual people who I know actually see me, and it was very nice. I consider you all my people, and I'm very grateful to you. So thank you. As I like throw my stuff everywhere. I swear Mercury's direct.
It is, but we're still in shadow phase. So like the dropsies, that sort of thing.
Stationary, so it's thinking about it. It's not quite moving. It's got to pick up speed.
I just said the dropsies is in when you drop a lot of stuff, and my guides all just looked at me and were like the illness, and I was like, nope. Whoops. Okay, here we are.
Get hip, guides. What the heck?
Like they just all were like,
wait a long time.
Okay.
This is why you do channeled history.
I know. It's funny. I have a video planned that I'm going to do because the other day I was trying on clothes and Lacoste was like, why are you wearing that? Like genuinely just like asking, like, because she wears like drapes and like sheets and like a tunic, right? And I was like, because this is like what we wear now. She's like, yeah, but you can't hide anything in anything you're wearing. Like, I don't understand the logic. Like women fought very hard to be able to hide things. It's like, oh, I don't know.
That's why I have a waist. Like I have literally an adventure pack. That's my chosen purse. And it makes me so happy because there's so many, like so much organization and pockets. And like, even if I don't have pockets because I'm wearing something designed for female people, I still have pockets and you can't stop me. That's wonderful.
It was just really funny. I was like cracking up as I put on this like tank top dress thing that I was trying on. Just like, what are you doing?
There are no secret compartments in this.
Yeah. Because she doesn't like Earth very much. So she kind of honestly did not incarnate, I don't think, again since her life then, and just kind of like separated from the planet, and then like decided her story deserved to be told, like the righteous female rage moment that's occurring in like currently now. So a lot of things about the current reality she has not paid attention to and is very confused about, which is super fun for me. Not so fun for her, but anyway.
Oh, I love it.
Beside the point. Well, today, our patrons voted on the Astral Projection FAQs episode. So for our frequently asked questions, we decided we're kind of going to play 20 questions with Astral Projection. Krista and I both have a background in Astral Projection. We've both done it repeatedly. I did a whole course on it a while ago, 6-ish years ago, maybe. I don't know. It was a while ago. Only to realize I've been doing it forever.
Right. And that's what a lot of you are probably going to realize, that it has this like reputation to it of being this unattainable, out of this world, whatever thing. It's really not. And the same goes for a lot of magical practices. It's very much what we already do or what we already have access to. And we just have said, ooh, that's weird. Don't do it. For all of you who have heard the, ooh, that's weird, don't do it your entire lives. We hear you. Do it. If it doesn't hurt anybody and it doesn't hurt you, feel free to give it a shot.
Yeah, I will say too, astral projection a lot easier than you think it is. It is easier than shifting, and I do want to frame that out because that has really been having a moment. Shifting is a lot harder. Shifting is very possible. It's definitely a thing you can do for sure, but it's harder to do because it is genuinely like you wake up in a different reality sort of feels. It has everything that goes with it. Astral projection is more like viewing, not like remote viewing. That's a totally different thing, but like coming out of your body to like look at everything and then going back is what astral is. So that's just kind of a different sort of space. So I just want to like preface that because there is usually some blending when those two things are talked about. And since right now it's kind of a hot button thing, just so you guys kind of know at least the difference. If you're like, I've been trying to shift and it's actually astral. It's the whole thing.
It's actually astral. I feel like there's a
registered
name of a
trademark.
channel
No,
or something in there. Yeah.
It is not registered.
Astrally actual. Sorry. I was able to do that. Mercury's direct now.
Right. Well, it was like earlier and I said claustrophobia for your shoes. And I was like, I can do puns.
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking about like
whenever
your feet or your toes feel claustrophobic. Yeah, the random. But like I was like, oh yeah, Mercury's gone. I can do puns again. My words are here. Which is hilarious. Okay, cool. So let's rapid fire this list of FAQs.
Yeah. So the first one's super easy. What is astral projection?
I'm sorry, it's too complicated for me. Pass.
Yeah,
no, just kidding.
I don't know how to explain it. How do you describe this ephemeral thing? But really, it's not. Think about it like, here's an English lesson. Pull it apart, right? Astral, so not necessarily a physical, but also projection, sending something or visioning something. Yeah. And so that right away can ground you in the, oh, well, it's not that complicated when I actually think about what the words mean. But that's just as a start. Emily, do you want to like launch us into something a little bit?
Yeah, totally. So if you think about it, like our soul and our our soul has a consciousness and our body has a consciousness, those consciousness for this lifetime are inherently and incredibly linked together. You cannot separate them. That's what dying is, right? So you're super connected and you're intricately needing each other. However, what astral projection does is it's allowing the soul consciousness to operate without the pull of the body, essentially. So you're rising out of the body in a soul consciousness way to go see things that the body's physical limitations stop you from seeing, or the soul's limitations do not. So essentially, it's a way of letting your soul go and witness. Either you can astral project in our current everything's going on. You can just go look at yourself laying in bed, kind of out of body style. You can astral project and go to other planets. You can astral project to go to other realms and dimensions. You can even astral project through time and go look at different parts of the world back in time, because time is not linear, it's vertical if you think about it that way. So if your soul goes up, you can actually navigate that a lot easier. There's hand signs occurring if you want to watch the YouTube. Also, just really quick, I actually did a YouTube video on how I view the universe based on my channeling. It's coming out on Thursday, the same day that this is coming out. So if you guys want to like understand more about that, go there, because there's a lot of hand signs involved. But for a very simple explanation, when you're astral projecting, you can actually travel through both layers of the universe and also layers of time because of the vertical motion. Hopefully that all makes sense. Does that track?
No, I think it really does, because you're basically just saying if there were no barriers or boundaries, how would it move? How would you do things? If you could literally think and do, how would that work? So astral projection is basically living that way. Like you take a minute, and there are studies. I was doing some research on this. There are studies that say laying down is the easiest way to experience it. Because you don't have to worry about falling down. Your body's not worried about maintaining anything. It's just in a resting position. And there is a difference between astral projection and sleeping, and sometimes they can coincide. But astral projection in and of itself is sending your consciousness or awareness to another place where you can witness or experience something else.
Yeah.
It's so much easier done than said, though.
Right. Well, and like there's distinct differences between like astral projection and lucid dreaming, astral projection and remote viewing. Like there's actual differences there. So without getting into the super nitty gritty, it is kind of more of an adventure sort of situation to witness something versus like lucid dreaming, where you are in a dream and you get to decide and drive everything. Astral projection is more of a like, okay, I'm gonna go see what this is. This direction. And just a random fact with that too, you can actually do it with other people. If you're needing validation, I highly recommend finding a place where you have safe people where you can astral project together and go to like the same destinations. Because when you come back and return, they will validate your experiences. And it is so freaking cool because they'll be like, did you see that guy in the bunny costume? And you'll be like, yeah, I did see the guy in the bunny costume. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh. And it just validates it for, again, your human brain and human body who gets left behind while you're doing this. So it's, yeah, you can't separate from one another. You're perfectly linked still. So there's no like getting lost, that kind of thing happening. But your human body and human mind needs to wrap around where your soul energy gets it.
Yeah. And I've noticed like in the act of astral projecting, I'm highly aware of the presence of my body. And so while I'm doing it, I'm witnessing everything, but also very aware of my body. And it's like easy to question as it's happening. Afterwards, I almost remember it differently as only the astral projection and not the physical body. It's a very, like, I'm thinking of a specific time, which I think I'll be sharing throughout the list. But it's totally okay if you're still aware of your physical presence while astral projecting, because again, you're still connected and that's a good thing.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. Cool. I think we got that one. Next question.
I think we kind of blended in the next one. How does astral projection work?
Oh, okay. We did it.
Yeah. So is astral projection real or just a product of my imagination?
It is a product of your imagination. That's the point.
I like how we don't strategize on our answers to this beforehand, and we're just like, we look at each other and we know we're going to say the same thing.
Like, this is exactly what's going on. I do just want to say a little bit on that note with the imagination. This is something whenever someone's like, I always get concerned, it is just my imagination. And I'm always like, it is. It is just in your imagination is your force of magic. You've just been conditioned to believe it's fake and pretend your entire life. So anything that imaginative happens, you're like, oh, this is fake and pretend, leaning in on that. And like, you don't let yourself actually experience it. I'm not saying that there's not elements of your imagination where you can like model situations and imagine things separate, but for the most part, that's how you connect and access things.
Well, and it's super funny because we do it all the time and we call it art, and it's okay as long as it's art. But then the minute you try to say that art is a lifestyle, or that art extends into more than just recreation, like in astrology, you'd put that in the 5th house because you do it for fun. But what if it became part of the 6th? Then all of a sudden, no, because you can't do that in a practical way or whatever. You can. And there's so many movements right now that are like, ooh, art is healing. Stories are healing. Music is healing. The Forgotten Storytellers has been doing this for 3 years. Like, that's what we do. We help you write stories because they're real, because you're helping people heal and they are magical. And so we have a ton of case studies, and we are open for pitches in case you're interested. But we have a ton of case studies from
we have like 70 case studies of how this is
and it works. And so like your imagination is how you conceive of things that you make real. Let's like pull out a Walt Disney quote. If you can dream it, you can do it. Astral projection. Similar.
Yeah. So it is just in your imagination, but it's your imagination's not pretend. So unwork that.
Yeah.
Also, I think part of the reason that we think our imagination is fake or pretend, because unless we make art that is consumable for others, we don't feel that it's valid. So I just want to knock on that door a little bit.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's just such a thing. But it's funny because, memes used to be like, make it marketable and blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, I make my art for myself. And if people like it, then they're supposed to like it. Yes, that's exactly how it should go. And the more you think that way, the easier it's going to be to do things like astral projection, because you're in tune with yourself and the messages you're receiving or the things you're doing. So I think that that's helpful too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Number 4 is, can anyone learn how to astral project? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes,
100%. Absolutely.
Start today.
And honestly, it's actually way easier and way more accessible, which is the kind of name of the game with everything we talk about all the time, pretty much. Things are way easier and more accessible than you think that they are. I promise.
I was working with one of my regular clients this past week, and they're looking for like a mentor to help them just get better at some magical practices that are just like a well-rounded thing, astral projection included, energy manipulation, all those things. And I was like, I can, you're already coming to me like every other month or so. We can work on these things because they're so much easier than they sound. It sounds like you have to go through some kind of crazy trial by fire initiation to be able to do it. And I know there's this big thing, which we could do an entire podcast episode on, just initiations and their worth and limitations.
Yeah.
But I will say
fair.
right now, one of my biggest belief in initiations is the wisdom that comes with experience.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you know something best when you've related with it enough or worked with it enough. And I think that's why initiations are there. They're supposed to say you've reached this point of understanding. Now you're ready for the next point. I think we've ruined initiations and like misunderstood them for what they used to be. But like a graduation, it's an initiation saying you now have the knowledge and experience to move on to this next thing. And so how do you get the knowledge and experience? By playing with the actual thing, by doing the actual thing in a safe way, hopefully with someone there to guide you if you need it. But even with astral projection, you don't need anything to get started. It's not like you need to go out to the craft store and pick up glue and scissors. You can just set your intentions and see what happens and get more acquainted with it, and it will develop like a muscle.
I will also say with big sort of esoteric things like astral projection and like, deep energy work, energy manipulation, they have been very thoroughly gate kept. Primarily, I think it's an ego thing for when people do discover how to do them. There's an ego of like, oh, well, I know how to do this magic. I had to earn it, instead of just being like, cool, I figured it out. You should try it too.
Yeah.
Which how it should be, in my opinion anyway, is, hey, I figured it out. You should try it too, as long as, they can equip the person adequately to handle it, which is, obviously what I focus on mostly with my entire brand. But I think that's really, really important to point out of, if you feel like there's a spiritual thing and you're like, man, I wish I could do that. This person can and that person can, but I don't know how. You do. You do know how. You might need some actual tools, but you definitely can figure it out. There is no reason you cannot.
Yeah. And like, I'm someone who really values education, understanding sources. And like, as Emily has made me aware, I'm your astrological mentor. Like, that's my thing that I like to do. I like to teach people in everything that I can how astrology works, where it came from, so that you can understand the fullness of it. So definitely pursue an understanding of the fullness of something. But again, immersive learning is the way to go. Think about learning a language, as many of these techniques are the same way. Immerse yourself in it. And as long as you're not like bringing someone else's safety, security, or their material wealth into it and putting it at risk, especially when you're getting started, you're fine. Eventually, you may find that you do it so well that other people ask you for your help, and then it becomes such a consumption of your time that you need compensation, and then that's okay. But that's the thing. Like, just let yourself play with it.
And that's the big key that most people forget. And people will talk about it like, don't be attached to the result. And that's true. Don't be attached to the result. But the way you get not attached is to play.
Yeah.
When you're like, I'm going to try this and I'm going to get some sort of benefit out of it, no matter what happens, you are so much closer to success than the person that has been trying consistently every single day for the past 6 months and is so frustrated because they're not getting to go see whatever thing that they want to go see so bad. Like, you're going to get so much more success if you're like, well, this is my intention. This is where I'd like to go. I'm going to give it a shot, but no matter what happens, I'm going to enjoy myself. Massive difference. Massive difference.
Yep.
So, yeah. Cool. Keep going. This is good.
All right. So 5, are there any dangers associated with astral projection?
Yes.
Yeah.
There is. It's actually one of those things where I don't do a lot of content on social media about astral projection, because you need to have a kind of in-depth understanding of how energy works in order to do it in a way that is safe and aligned. There's mental health components that you want to pay attention to. You want to make sure that you're adequately at least asking for protection from your guides or shielding, just because your soul is in a vulnerable state in a place with physical matter, right? So your soul is not leaving your body fully, but like your consciousness of your soul is kind of separating to go do things, which means it's outside of the protection of your physical body in a physical space. So just keeping in mind like levels of protection, shielding yourself, asking your guides for help, and understanding and not getting lost in the fact that, oh, I can just throw myself into this other world. I can throw myself into this adventure that's out there, and kind of losing track of like current reality stuff. That's where that mental health component sort of comes in. You don't want to be using it, at least in my experience, as I need to escape. It's not meant for that, because it's not going to give you that.
Yeah.
Weird analogy, but if you've ever done any sort of hallucinogen and you're like, I'm going to have a super fun time and get giggles. And instead you get an existential like deep dive into everything you've been bypassing and you have to sit there for 12 hours and examine yourself. It's that, but
Yeah.
not as intense.
It's going to give you what you need.
Uh-huh.
And you may not know what that is.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
you know, when you're going there, you're going for the thing that you need to know. And that's like when you're going to visit any kind of intuitive or psychic or anything like that. One of the things that I had to tell people early on in my practice as a phone psychic, as Emily, I know you relate to, it's you're going to get what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, it may not be exactly what you came for, but it's going to be what you needed. And we see that in like, you can't always get what you want, but if you try it, sometimes you just might find you get what you need. People wrote songs about it. So we know it's a like a universal truth. But that being said, if you want an escape because you're in that place right now, you don't need astral projection. You need astral protection. You don't need astral projection because we have video games, we have stories, we have things that give you these temporary escapes while also teaching you how to feel empowered so that you can make a difference in your life, because you are here to do something, to feel something, to embody something. Yeah. So like there's a meaning to being here, and I can totally empathize with the fact that it doesn't always feel like it, but that's the rough part, and running from that part is only going to make it last longer. So, you know, make use of entertainment and art as healing modalities and as rest. Astral projection is a different thing, and you can do it at the same time. Just be prepared that you're going to get what you need from that. It's not like a game.
Yeah. And depending upon where or when you're astral projecting, sometimes there are beings out there that do cause ill will towards soul stuff. So like just on like that base, like going really woo woo with it, there is beings out there that want to harm.
There are astral bullies.
Yeah, there are astral bullies. Good way of putting it. That's why you need that level of soul protection as well. So there's like the mental health side of it, but then there's also the like, hey, there's stuff that will mind to mess with you. So like make sure you're secure in either asking your guides for protection or doing a little bit of shielding, anything like that. That's more than that's enough. You don't have to like have like 7 layers of whatever, but one of my first exercises every time I do any sort of astral is the first thing that I always ask my guides to, you know, shield me or whatever. But the first thing I do once I realize I've stepped into astral is I put a shield around myself, and I'm like, cool, now I feel safe to travel in my bubble. And that is just kind of a really good rule of thumb.
And it's the same as, oh, I've stepped outside and it's cold, I'm going to put a coat on.
100%.
Yeah.
So also, if you get jump scared really easily or are very triggered by scary images, just be like aware, because a lot of things, despite not being malevolent, will look scary to you, especially if you're doing astral stuff.
Yeah, they're very
and you might be like,
unfamiliar.
whoa, what is that? That thing is a bad thing. And they're not. That's just how they look. So just prefacing, also jump scares are just, it's just a thing.
Think about any movie where someone's gone to an unusual world and they're like, that thing has a face. It's kind of like that.
It's a little bit like that, especially if you do any sort of astral to like fairy realms or anything like that. Like
they think you look funny too.
Yeah. So just putting that out there.
Number 6. What are the benefits of practicing astral projection? So this is a great question. If you do it, what are you doing it to achieve? Right. So I want to, like, Emily, I feel like you've got the lead in on this.
Okay, sure. I think the benefits honestly are reminding you of, I think it establishes a better higher self connection, like on a very spiritual note. I think that is a huge benefit of astral projection. It's a huge help when doing shadow work or realizing like what limitations you've placed on yourself and how you don't need to place those limitations, boundary work, shadow work, things like that. It's really, really helpful with that. Also just soul journey stuff. Honestly, if you want a reminder of like magic exists, if you want a reminder that there's more out there than just the stuff that we're dealing with on this planet, do that. It's a great way of getting that. And honestly, it's always, not always, but fairly often a catalyst for change. Period in your life. Like once you start astral stuff, you bring home new energy from different places, and that creates active change. So if you're feeling stagnant, go for it.
Yeah, I agree so deeply, because to me, it's a way of gaining experience without having to actually go somewhere. You don't need material resources. to be able to do this. You can gain the experience. It's much like reading a book where you kind of feel like you have the experience that the character had when you read the story. With this, you can do a similar thing. But also it's going to be giving you, and I need this so much, especially in today's climate with everything that's going on, so much perspective that what we are mentally stuck in as a society and what we fixate on and what we make important is so tiny and not as scary or big or, you know, whatever, as media and all this stuff makes it seem. It pulls you out and says, look at it from the top down. Now you can see the bigger picture. Now you can go somewhere else and experience that. Like there's this way of separating from the fear that ends up happening when you give too much credit to a material world.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair way of saying that. I will also say, you know, the benefits of traveling, you get that. You know how people like talk about the benefits of traveling? If you don't know the benefits of travel, just go do a quick little Google search. And it will tell you that's what you get from astral travel too. It is travel. It is genuinely travel to a foreign country where everyone doesn't speak your language. So like looking up those benefits of travel is what we're kind of going for, because that's what it is.
You will be creating new neural pathways for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, there's huge benefits, honestly. As long as you're someone who feels aligned with it, don't force yourself. Like it has to feel fun and exciting to try. It's not a requirement to live a spiritual life. And I like always want to put that out there, because like the stuff we talk about a lot of different topics and a lot of different varieties. And if you're going to be drawn to some, and others you'll be like, oh, that sounds interesting, but like take it or leave it. Cool. Dive into the stuff that feels fun in the moment. Do not force yourself into anything purely because you think that's what you need to do to be spiritual. No.
So then number 7 is, how long does it take to learn astral projection? As long
Purple.
as it takes.
There's not an answer to that question. It's different for everybody. Everyone's life experience is different. Everyone's limiting beliefs are different. Everything is different. So there is no rule of thumb.
There's no standard to meet either. Like you're not failing if you're taking X amount of time. You're not advanced if you're taking X amount of time, because you're probably going to run into something down the road. That's just the thing that you were meant to take that time on. And that's such is life, right? Like, we're on our own pace and standards don't work there. So yeah, I mean, it takes as long as it needs to, and give it that amount of time, because here's the thing. You're here for as long as you're here, and you'll have as much time as you need. So if this is something you're doing, you'll have enough time for it. Something I remind myself of often, because I am someone who fears not having enough time sometimes. Like if I'm going to have anxiety, it's usually over that. And that's what I tell myself. And I know that's truer than the anxiety. So if it helps,
and again,
I'm with you.
The more you release that attachment, the more you're like, every time I try this, I'm going to get something out of it, and I'm going to keep going, because every time it's going to give me some sort of benefit, the easier it's going to be. And however long it takes is how long it takes. It just is. Some people will have already been doing it and not realized it. And so now it's just a matter of like, how can you do it intentionally? And some people have never done it, and it's going to take a couple years, and that's great. Both are awesome. So yeah.
What techniques? Sorry?
I was just going to say it's the best non-answer to that question.
Sorry, but not sorry. What techniques can I use to induce astral projection?
Cool. So on this, laying down is really helpful. Genuinely is a very helpful technique, because the more your body doesn't have to be focused on, as far as, you know, oh, the muscles in your back are hurting or anything like that, the more you can just be in like a really subdued state, the more helpful it is. You can use things like subliminals. You can use, you know, like audio stuff that can be really helpful, because that does carry frequency. So, you know, subliminals, make sure you're doing good ones, or even just listening to singing bowls, doing like sound healing stuff that can really, really help induce it. One technique that I find particularly helpful is like vibrating your energy. If you can start by isolating your soul energy away from your body and like vibrating it back and forth, the more you do that, the easier it's going to be to just be like boop, 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 and like pop out, for lack of a better term. And having like affirmations, mantras, that sort of thing that you're kind of thinking of and focusing on while you do it, even if it's telling yourself a story. in your head, that can really help, especially for those folks who have a very, very busy and loud mind. Me. I will tell myself a story and I will decide on the story beforehand of what exactly I'm doing, where I'm going. When in doubt, if you're like, oh, okay, I want to go here, narrate what's going to happen. Narrate yourself as if you're already there. Like, okay, so my soul is leaving my body. Now I'm going up through my ceiling. Now I'm doing this. And what you'll notice is all of a sudden you'll start getting flashes of images or sounds or senses or whatever. And you're going to be like, oh, wow, I'm actually connecting with this. Something is going on here. Because you use the power of story to narrate your journey and to propel you forward along it. But those are all really like accessible techniques that can be done really easily. What about you?
So my astral projection has not always been a conscious thing. It's usually just something that like happens because I'm trying to do something, and that's like the best method that ends up happening. I'm one of those people that's just like, I just need this to happen, and however it happens, whatever. And that's when astral projection will often come in. Frequently it's because I'm trying to check in on someone, or I'm trying to see how something happened or where someone's at. A lot of the times my astral projections have been because someone has asked me to help somebody. So I'm like, okay, well, where are they? What are they going through? How can I understand the situation better? And so for that, I sit down where I can like rest fully, and I just breathe, and I go through like a meditation that focuses me on a lot of just getting my head in the space where it needs to go. For me, it's like going through and cleansing all my energies, and then kind of there's a visualization. It's the theta healing meditation adapted. So I go through the different like sort of planes of existence, reminding myself that they can be kind of transited. And then when I get to that space where I realize I'm sort of out of my body a little bit, then I say, okay, this is where I need to go. And I go there. It's very much like a visualization kind of feeling.
One of the things I kind of discovered is it can be really helpful to have a layaway station that you're headed towards first. I usually use the moon because the moon's easy to conceptualize, if that makes sense. So if you're just trying to get to the moon, it makes it a lot easier because you understand you're going up, you understand you're going out, and you're going to a place that feels familiar in a image sense at the very least. So that can be really helpful as well. Also bug your guides, tell them what you're wanting, tell them that you're doing this, ask them to help. That can also be particularly effective in this situation. And I will say a lot of times it is kind of involuntary. Sometimes it will just happen. If you have a place that always makes your energy feel activated. So like my dad, who has astral projected and done out of body stuff, he is a forest person. If he could just live in the forest all the time up in the mountains, he 100% million would. So that is always where it's happened for him because that is his happy place. So if you have a happy place, even if you can't be in it, doing like putting your energy there, bringing that energy in, focusing on that energy while you're trying to lean in can also really help because it will put your energy in that state of comfort as well.
Yeah. And for anybody who's done like EMDR, they have like a calm place or a quiet place that you use. That is where you would create as like a way station, and it can be somewhere familiar or somewhere that you create yourself.
And I use the moon not because it's my happy place, because it's fucking not, it's a barren rock, but I use the moon.
Oh, your moon's in Scorpio, so it would.
All right, well, it's also like I have a very strong soul connection to the moon, but not actually being on the moon, if that makes sense. So I use the moon because of its positioning more than I use it for its like comforting, almost because I don't want to be comforted. I want to be thrown into this so I know I'm doing it. So if that's you too, valid. Yeah, absolutely. It's always so funny because I hate time travel in books and movies and stuff unless it's done very, 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 very well. I'm not a fan of it because we don't need time machines. We already are them. And no one ever does it that way. They always do it in a way that like wrecks your timeline or creates a parallel one or whatever the fuck. And it drives me nuts because like, would you like to go look at stuff back in time? Do it. Do it. Like it's possible.
Why do you have to physically be there? I don't get it.
Yeah. Or you could shift there. Like you can do things like that. That's possible. Like we are the time machines. And it just since I was a little kid, it's driven me absolutely bonkers.
Right.
So just a side note on that.
So speaking of like screwing up the timelines, can I be physically harmed while astral projecting?
I mean, yeah. If you're in Like
If you're
not
in a
from the
dangerous
astral projection, but like
No.
from like, where's your body?
Yep. Yeah, make sure you're in a quiet, unactive, safe space.
Yeah.
But I think where this question may be coming from is and I don't see it in the rest of the questions. There's this thing that gets hyped up a lot when you hear about astral projection, especially on social media, of like, don't let the tether cut because
Which
you'll
can't
die.
happen.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. So I think
impossible.
that's the question to address here is, can I get untethered and die?
No,
Mm-mm.
you
Because why
can't.
would honestly, your survival instinct won't allow that.
No.
First of all, most basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't do that. It's
Mhm.
not a thing.
Yeah.
It's not a thing. Also, like if we're talking about physical harm, again, like you're still conscious of your body. It's not like, bye bye body, see you later, I'll come back in an hour, and your body's just like laying there inert. Like that's
Yeah.
not what's happening. You're still like, you know how I've talked about how I have rooms in my brain where I channel certain things? Just
Mhm.
because I'm sitting in my spirit guide room doesn't mean I can't feel if someone's knocking on the door of the mediumship room, right?
Mhm.
So it's that kind of concept where over here you're doing astral stuff, but that doesn't mean you can't feel your body
Yeah.
existing. It's just a different room in your consciousness for that
Mhm.
particular moment. So if your house were to catch on fire or something while you're doing this, you'll be like, oh shit, I'm back, go back, you'll be
Yeah.
back,
Like
So
if
like it's not like that.
if you've ever been reading a book and you can really picture the book, you're still
Yeah.
aware that you're sitting there reading the book.
Yeah,
It's very
exactly.
similar.
Or even like on a base level, just scrolling social media, you know how you fell down that rabbit hole and all of a sudden 3 hours have passed?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you forgot that your hand was the thing scrolling it.
Mhm.
Like you're
That's
still doing it. Yeah. So
yeah.
yes, you can, but not in the way you think you can.
Yeah. I mean, only if you were irresponsible with where you put yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no more in danger than anywhere else, or than if you like fell asleep in public, but even less danger than if you fell asleep in public, because again, you still
Yeah.
have awareness. So
Yeah.
there's
That's what I
that.
was gonna say. It's not sleep.
Mhm. Yeah. So number 10, we're halfway there. Can I interact with other beings or people in the astral realm?
Yes.
Yes.
Very much so. Whether that's like past loved ones, people who lived, whatever, or different extra dimensional beings, alien beings, whatever. Yes, your guides, 100%. Absolutely, you can, for sure. In fact, most of my astral projections revolve around other beings and interacting with other beings. I think the same's for you, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I've interacted with so this is where I think I wanted to bring in my most prominent two situations of astral projection have been to the Midwest, where I was asked to help a family, like an extended family member who had fallen and hit their head on a sink and then wound up in a coma in like a truck stop. And so I was like, well, if they're in a coma, something in me was like, they lost themselves, like they got kind of separated. So I
Mm-hmm.
went to find them and I found them and I was like, let me take you up here. We'll find where you're supposed to go. And like, the question was, are you supposed to go back there? Is that what's necessary? Like all of
Right.
these kind of conversations so that I understand the
Mm-hmm.
situation and become a conduit and an agent for what's supposed to
Mm-hmm.
happen. And similarly, when it was actually the moment my grandmother passed away, my
Yeah.
mom asked me, like, can you ask God why we're going through this? If she's this bad, why is she still here? And I was like, I'm going to ask what we're supposed to learn from this. Because
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to do that because that's a lot of pressure, but I can see what we're supposed to see rather than asking for something too specific. Again, like what we were saying with, setting your intentions. I ended up in a hospital room I'd never been in before. I took in my surroundings so I could get validation later. And I saw my grandmother standing next to my grandmother and said, what are you doing over there? Had a conversation with her and ended up truly walking her to
Mm-hmm.
what comes next. When I became aware, I wrote down the time, wrote down what I saw, went to go see my mom, and she was already crying because she had just gotten the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, yes, you can. I find that interacting with other astral beings is the way. Like I haven't necessarily interacted with, unless they were highly intuitive already. Like I've astral projected to my husband at work and just been like, hi, I miss you. I've done that before and like come home
Mm-hmm.
early or whatever. And he'll
Use
have
it for
felt
snacks. If you're at the
yeah,
store and I forgot to get you I'm like, I want snacks. Husband, bring snacks.
right.
If I can't like text you right now, if I'm like in a meeting or whatever at
Yeah.
work, like when I was working at in HR, I'd like project to Weston and be like, please bring popcorn.
Yeah. And so like for my husband, for Dan, he, at the time he was like exploring all that stuff, still kind of skeptical. So the more open they are to picking up on that, the more easily you're going to connect with someone who's not currently in the astral.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my side. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I really I mean, I've astral projected quite a bit actually. When I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, oh, there's that time I interacted with that. Okay, I've done this a lot. So this is it's something honestly, most of my meditation, if I'm meditating, like consciously sitting down meditating, then usually I'm astral, doing astral stuff. If I'm active meditating, that's what is like more of what you'd think of as meditation, getting ahas, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
If I'm like sitting down, breathing, have music on, closing my eyes, or even laying down, then I'm astral for sure. So I have interacted a lot with beings. One of my favorites was one time I went to basically Vega planet, star. I don't know what you fucking call it. It's not
I
in
think that's
our
an asteroid.
galaxy. It's
Yeah.
out more. Anyway, went there and arrived, and they were like, "Oh, you're here for the healing waters." I'm like, "Nope, but I'm going." Here we go. Let's go there. And I went to it was like an underground bath situation, which was really, really cool, and like was very like led. I don't know what that was all about necessarily, even to now, but it was really lovely at the time. One time I astraled, I have a very reoccurring mentor, spiritual mentor of mine, not in the physical, very much is in like a guide space. She does not come through very often, and she does not come through the way everyone else comes through. She's come through in dream spaces, etc. But one time I astraled with her, and it was one of the fastest astrals I've ever done, where it was just like, oh, you have time to astral, pick you up and plop you over here, just like whoop, like you're getting pulled. And I was like, okay. And she was in basically like a spaceship-esque feeling situation, and we were looking down on Earth and like talking about perspective. And it was a time when I was like really in my own head about stuff. So that was really, really helpful. Basically like actually letting the idea that we're a tiny blue dot like really sink in and accepting that. I've also astraled to fairy, which I've talked about before, and gotten gifts from fairy. This was actually like last year, not this most recent December, November, but the previous one. And crazy stuff was happening in my
I
life at the
remember that.
time. Absolutely crazy stuff was happening in my life at the time, and I astral to fairy and ended up having a drink with some guy in a giant acorn that was a bar. So we did that. He was cute. Every time I need like reassurance about something, I swear I just picture him laughing the way that he did, because he was just so precious, like this old, very much old fairy that just got like took the piss with everything, kind of feels, of like just making everything a joke. So yeah, I've done a lot with beings in astral sleep. There we go.
Yeah. So I'm going to start combining a couple questions because I think that they go well together, and I want to make sure that we don't run out of time.
Right.
12 and 13, are there any spiritual or religious implications of astral projection? And can astral projection be used for healing purposes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like spiritual, I mean, what do you mean by implications? Like
I think,
there's an awareness of spiritual presence and stuff that is implicit in it, for sure.
yeah. I mean, you
wouldn't
may reassess
necessarily
religious
religious.
beliefs. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you may reassess religious beliefs once you start doing astral stuff. It can confirm, it can release stuff in both senses. So I guess if you are a really, really like staunch Catholic person or something in that space, and you go in astral, you might learn new information that might challenge your own belief structures and systems. So
Mhm.
that could be an implication.
Yeah, and I find often you're going to find, if you really engage with any religious texts that are important to you, that you feel are important to you, you'll find examples of these things in there. It's just not brought up in the services.
Yeah. That's
Um,
kind of, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I find a lot of that with the texts that I engage with. And it's like, oh, there's that. Okay. Like I didn't notice it or read it that way before, but now that I know what I know, that's the same language they used in this text for this. So that's one of the reasons I'm learning ancient Greek, is because I can find the original word and see how it was used and how it should have been used and get the actual meaning. So stay tuned for when I actually become a translator.
Yeah, but it's very much kind of that energy. So it can help you confirm or deny things. If you need that, go for it.
Yeah.
And can it be used for healing? Absolutely. You've already got examples of that, hopefully, in this call.
Exactly.
So yes, totally, you can use it for healing for sure. And you probably will use it for healing regardless of whether or not you choose to.
It will heal you in the way, like in a very plutonic way, not platonic, plutonic way. But that's what transformation is. And that's kind of what we're doing with a lot of our magic. So it's not going to hurt you, but it may not be the smoothest journey. But that's okay, because you can, you're wonderful. So 14, I'm going to do 14 and then 15 and 16 kind of go together. So 14, how can I distinguish between a lucid dream and an astral projection?
One is done while sleeping.
And the other one's not.
You can still do astral while sleeping. But you'll wake up and be like, I don't remember this. What's going on? Lucid dreaming is a process of either, it's kind of waking up while dreaming. And then you can just kind of mess around. If you do astral while sleeping, it's usually, hey, guess what? You're in astral and we're going to do a bunch of stuff. And then you're going to wake up and be like, oh shit, I did a bunch of stuff in astral because that was way too real. Like, this is stuff that was happening. Versus lucid dreaming, you have to make that decision while in the dream, basically. For lack of a better term.
In lucid dreaming, you get to change, like I've changed day to night, or I've flown, or whatever. And like it's like a sandbox video game. As compared to being in the astral, there have been times in the astral where guides have met me and they're like, we're going to be doing some maintenance, is what they call it, soul maintenance tonight. You're coming with us. And I'm just like, do what you got to do. And so that's the experiences I've had of like sleeping astral projection. But I remember it rather than I engaged and created in it.
Yeah, I agree with that. My sleeping astral is usually, to me, going to look at places where things are equally challenging as they are here. And getting validation from that, occasionally helping with that, but oftentimes getting more validation from that more than anything.
I also astral projected just recently to the same grandmother from the previous story. She brought me to where she hangs out and just like gave me a bunch of symbols to show to everybody, to let all of us know that she had finished integrating over there, which I thought was phenomenal. She was like, listen, I've settled in here. Here's where I'm at. Tell your mom about these figurines. And like, I knew nothing of the history about them, but they were meaningful for my mom and for her siblings, which was phenomenal. But I was just like in this house having conversations, and she was like, look outside. And there was things outside that I had to tell people, but it was more astral, again, witnessing it and being a part of the story rather than building something.
Where lucid dreaming is a lot more like play, building. It's not necessarily a healing experience. Usually it's just like, oh, I'm in a dream. I actually would not like to talk to that thing over there right now. I'm going to go over here, or whatever it is, or my teeth are not going to fall out. No.
Or I'm not going to dial the wrong number for the 8th time.
Right. Yeah. It's like that feels.
Yeah. Okay. 15 and 16. 15 is really quick. Are there any scientific studies or evidence supporting astral projection? And can drugs or substances enhance or inhibit astral projection experiences? As far as the scientific studies, I did some light research on this. The thing is, because it's such a spiritual thing, not many people have given it a ton of credence unless you're looking at already spiritual sites, and we have to measure what the bias might be there. If you want to look up like scientific studies on things as close to astral projection as I've been able to find, look up out of body experiences. And you can find like voluntary out of body experiences and things like that and expand it from there. You'll find more accredited sources or scientific sources.
As far as substances, they can be a benefit or they can be a detriment. It depends on how much experience you have with them and how much use you do with them. I will say THC tends to be more of a benefit, where hallucinogenic substances tend to be harder to navigate, and you will be a lot more thrown into it, not usually of your own volition. So it depends on your training. It depends on how much you're dosing, those kinds of things. I'm not an expert, but I've just experienced it a lot. And so that's my biggest piece. It's based on the person, not based on the substance.
Well, and I feel like, or theorize, and I certainly will defer to you on how true this is or how relevant, but everything is what is it? Everything is a remedy until it's a poison. So again, kind of reinforcing what you're saying of like, is it useful, or is it, are you using it to enhance, or are you using it to cover up or run away or, push something too far? And I think
Yeah.
that that's one of the things that if I were to consider using something to enhance the experience, I would take that into consideration as one of my first questions, but I personally have no experience with things like that. So
Yeah, I mean, you can read up on people's ayahuasca trips. That's like a really easy way to understand some things that happen in astral stuff. And some people love that and some people hate that. And that depends on the person. I think Sting says it really, really wonderfully. Oh, what's that documentary? Basically, there's a documentary on Netflix where a bunch of people, all celebrities, talk about their experiences with psychedelics. And it's very, very funny. If you want to check that out, it's hilarious. But he basically says it if I've never had a basically a psychedelic trip where I got what I wanted, but I've always had a psychedelic trip where I got what I needed. And that's how it goes. And that doesn't make them pleasant. They should not, it's not a party substance. Let me just put it that way. So if you're looking to just play with natural kind of astral stuff, I don't recommend substances unless you're really adept at, like, you smoke every day or something like that. So
yeah. And they
yep.
are like, they are tools, and they have like spirits with them in a sense. Like I've
Yes.
noticed, I've worked with a lot of people who are very engaged with plant magic, and you want to really honor the wisdom of the plant or the wisdom of the substance, which comes from something. So it's
Yeah.
something to think about, especially when you're looking
Especially,
at what you're choosing to use.
yeah. And if you're like living in a place where recreational marijuana is legal, it's really, really interesting going from, because, I've participated in this since I was like 15. So, California, it is, what it is. But it's very interesting how the spirit of it has changed. So like per plant, because now you can go in and be like, what type of spirit and energy am I wanting in a store, and walk around and be like, oh, maybe I want some of this, or I know that this energy is going to be really good. And you can literally energetically choose the experience you're having, versus before it was like, I don't know. I don't even know what the name of this is. I got it from my cousin's friend's brother, and that is a different sort of energy with it too. So just there's so many layers to all of that it's not something that I recommend for astral. It's a really cool experience though to have transitioned from that.
Also, apologies for anybody who's hearing Jack talking to whatever is here, which is literally nothing visible to the naked eye. So
It is to his naked
small
eye.
astral
He
joke
gets
there.
it.
Yeah. Okay. So 17, are there any recommended books or resources for learning more about astral projection?
Honestly, the thing I always push people towards, especially for like very simple understanding of universal concepts, go watch some spirit science videos. They're cartoons and they're like 15 minutes long, and you'll know way more and at least have questions that you can now look up.
Yeah.
That's always my go-to.
Yeah. And then 18, 19, and 20 really blend well into each other. Can astral projection be dangerous if practiced incorrectly, be used for psychic and intuitive purposes, and be used in gaining knowledge of accessing higher states of consciousness? I think we talked about the accessing higher states of consciousness already. That's one of the primary
We talked about all of them.
uses. Yeah, that's why I'm blending them right now.
Yeah.
So those are the 20 questions.
Yeah.
We made it through in really great time.
I know. Yes to all of them, which I think we've touched on.
Yep.
All the questions you have, remember that you already know how to do this. This is actually a really powerful tool. In Buddhism, it's actually a process that they do of, if you run into a problem, don't ask what's the answer, ask yourself to remember what the answer is, and it will make a huge difference because you already know it. So yeah, that's what I would say on that sort of space. When in doubt, think about some of your favorite characters that have done anything remotely like astral. Legendborn comes to mind. Lean into that and do what they have done. That is like, when in doubt, you already have the visualizations there. You already have the tools there because you've read characters or watched characters that have. Or maybe even role played those characters if you're a D&D person. So yeah. Thank you all. This was a fun episode. This was a super fun episode. Thanks to our patrons for voting on this. We do have a poll up with a couple other really fun topics. If you want to become a patron, you can vote on it. If you already are a patron, go ahead and make sure you're voting on that, because we do have a lot in there to talk about. Also, again, this is on YouTube. Krista and I also both have our own personal YouTubes. If you want to go check out more in-depth information about our areas of interest, like I said, mine is currently the video I have coming out this week is like how the universe works, basically. Video, which was super fun to film. And I know Krista is doing a lot of really fun new stuff with their YouTube presence. So go check that out as well.
I'm going to be talking about the Jupiter-Pluto cycle and dabbling a little bit in that Mars-Pluto opposition that's happening also this week. Some pretty sticky transits going on. So I'm going to dive into those, and I'll probably be posting a video about the new moon happening later this week as well. Or maybe
what day is the new moon?
On the 19th, so Friday.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, it is later this week. Cool. Friday, new moon.
I just wrote up the horoscopes for it today, so stay tuned for that to be released on social.
Yeah, so all of that. Also, pitches are still open for the Forgotten Storytellers. Spaces are filling up though. So if you are interested, send us your pitches, please. We've gotten a lot from listeners this time, and it's been so cool. We've had so much fun with it.
So amazing.
The pitches this time are just fire, and I promise yours are too. So like, please send us your pitches, because this is going to be a really cool cohort. It's going to be a really cool cohort, and I'm really excited. And if you're already part of it, yay!
Hi, we're so excited too. Yeah,
really stoked in that space. So thank you all for being here. Happy Mercury direct, and we hope that you take all this energy and you
go make some magic. Your counting happened faster than I was ready for.
Sorry.
So that anybody
trying to do it slow, but
also Jupiter is moving into Taurus tomorrow as well. So enjoy that energy.
Oh yeah.
Yay.
Okay, bye.